Hello Team FD and welcome back to the 12th Man, where you take us on at Sky Fantasy Football in a bid to win glorious prizes. If you haven't joined our league yet, the pin is on screen now and there's a link in the description below. Joining me as always, it's the brain to my pinky, it's Patrick Van Straten, and filling in for Joe today is my favourite stat-fuelled Mancunian cherub. It's Statman Dave. How are you, sir?
Excellent.
How's life as a Manchester United fan at current?
It's good. Just wait. Don't get too excited. Don't get too sad. Just stay in the middle sort of lane of the motorway.
Right, before we start, tweet us with your teams and we'll pick our favourite ones next week. There's prizes to be won. Get questions in. Let's move on to quickfire questions where you grill us with your fantasy football and Premier League related questions. Starting off with a question from Marcus on Twitter. He has asked, who is the best left back in the league? Because he's a bit puzzled as to who should be in his team. Now, you've got Mendy in your team, who's quite expensive. What was the rationale behind that?
I think in terms of Manchester City and where they're moving on tactically this season, I think Walker's going to tuck in a bit more, be more of an inverted wing-back, whereas Mendy's the guy on the overlap. So I think City's setup will be like a 3-3-4. Arguably Mendy against Arsenal, so high, like a left winger. Even moving to number 10, which is crazy. And if you want a guy to get points in the fantasy football, Sky Fantasy Football, you've got to have passes, you've got to have assists, you've got to have playing forward and being in that final third. And that's what Mendy did.
I think one tackle and interception against Arsenal, which kind of intimates the point you're making. He was really advanced. Wasn't convinced by his defending on a couple of occasions. He got absolutely done by Bayern, didn't he? I think late in the first half.
Yeah.
But has that raw pace and just ability in the final third to get past his man. Van Straten, are you in agreement? Do you have another contender?
I think by the end of the season it will probably be Mendy pretty clearly, and I also think that Emerson will probably be Chelsea's first.
I really agree with that.
By the end
Bargain
of the
as well in fantasy football.
Yeah, I think I picked him up for 6.5 or whatever.
That is
I
a
guess
bargain,
because they
that.
think Marcus Alonso, but he doesn't really fit the fullback to me.
Yeah.
He feels like a wing back.
100%. Like every single time I've watched Chelsea, in the Community Shield and against Huddersfield Town, consistently out of position. There's only a amount of time before he gets found out, and then, like I say, Emerson, who is a fullback, a very good fullback, will come in and he'll take that. So it's kind of that thing where maybe hold at the moment, and then when Emerson comes into the team, jump in there and you've got a fantasy football winner there.
Yeah, much more well-rounded. I think Robertson deserves a shout-out. I think he was brilliant against West Ham. I think Van Dijk playing next to him on that left-hand side makes up for some of his defensive shortcomings. And a little bit like Mendy, he is ridiculously advanced. I think his average position on the pitch was pretty much level with midfield in that absolute rollicking of West Ham. What do you make of the Scotsman?
I like him, and I think Naby Keita's going to come in and really help him. I think sometimes Liverpool are a little bit, last season, a bit sideways in central midfield. What Keita's going to do is he's going to play forward. We saw for the Mo Salah goal how he drove through midfield and then played the through ball for Robertson, and then he's in behind the defence. And when you're a fullback in behind the defence, it's easier to find that pass like he did. And I think that's going to get Robertson a lot more assists, and he's going to improve his record as well with Trent Alexander-Arnold on the other side. Liverpool do get them nice and high. So I think Robertson could be a good shout, but I think Mendy, for his ability on the ball, I think in terms of what someone's going to create something out of nothing, like we saw with the sort of interplay with Sterling, the overlap and the cutback. Classic Pep Guardiola football, but classic Mendy football at Monaco as well.
Yeah.
But I think Robertson is going to be up there in terms of, and could be a better option if you're looking for value.
Yeah, Pep's Bayern as well were pretty obsessed with crossing, weren't they? And getting guys in those wide areas and overloading one side of the pitch. And that is something I saw in that opening game against Arsenal, particularly down that left-hand side. You've got Bernardo Silva as well, hovering around the edge of the box. Van Straten, you've got Pereira in your side as well.
Yeah.
How did he fare first game? Obviously, you watched the Manchester United game. Not sure if you've watched the highlights yet, but
we watched
still
it here
him?
in the office on Friday without you. It was great.
FOMO.
I thought he was actually pretty good. I thought he was probably their most dangerous player. Though Maddison had good moments as well. The good thing about Pereira is he is both athletic and creative. You know, there are lots of players who can get down the wing but don't necessarily have the ability to beat a man, don't have the technical ability. And so, despite the fact that space was pretty limited out wide, I thought that he was relatively good throughout his career. He's put up big tackle and interception numbers, and also good creative numbers. He's going to get minutes as a right winger this season, which is where he started that game against Leicester. So you would expect him to get a few goals and assists, and often those are where edges can be found in fantasy football, right? When you've got a guy who's being played slightly further forward than their position on fantasy football would indicate.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing there in terms of him playing on the right-hand side. They're slightly changing Leicester. They had Mahrez last season, who was their creative hub. Now it's Maddison at 10.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like all Brighton and Pereira are going to be slightly defensive, but doing a similar thing where they're kind of playing as natural wingers. The chance he created for Maddison in the first half where he burst past one of the
That's
United
fantastic,
players and then
yeah.
cut it back. Great ball. Should have been a goal really, apart from a fantastic De Gea save. But that will get you points. Like Patrick's sort of saying, he's going to play it as a right winger over being a right back for me this season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that right-hand side develops for Leicester, because Danny Simpson was often there to kind of make up for Wes Morgan's lack of speed. And Leicester, obviously, and the previous managers played a very compact four. But like you said, it's opened up now. There's a little bit more responsibility maybe on Maguire's shoulders to cover Morgan in that area. But I'm really excited as to Leicester's potential attacking ability this season. Pereira obviously putting up huge numbers at Porto, like you said, wasn't he? And we kind of put him on a scout report last year, 1.5 key chances, kind of on a par with someone like Sane last season, which is crazy to consider. But that's our answer for fullback. Let's move on to the next question, lads. Next question is from Jordan Smith, and he's asked, are there any managers in the Championship you'd like to see in the Premier League? We don't always cover a lot of Championship, but it's certainly very interesting this year with the likes of Bielsa at Leeds. He's my outstanding candidate. Obviously produced a couple of scintillating performances at the start of the season. I think they scored 4 goals in both of their opening games. Crazy stuff. Some great highlights on Twitter. Go and check them out. Any other candidates for you guys?
I think Bielsa's the big one, right?
Yeah.
It's exciting. We wanted to see him for a while. That Athletic Bilbao team was amazing. But then they burn out after about 45 games.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing with the Championship. Big, long season. Can you continue to press and be aggressive? If they do, fair play. It'll be a great addition to the Premier League. But yeah, Graham Potter could be a good one as well.
That might, Graham Potter might be good. I think we'd all like to see him come up, or at least see what he's capable of, which we will do this season. I mean, the fun thing about Bielsa is that normally after that first year, everyone's exhausted, and then they have a downturn in the second season. But if they get promoted in that first year, then you'd have thought that the players will be more willing to kind of commit to his system and give it another good go. And I don't know, I just think that Bielsa plus Chilino plus Premier League equals carnage. I think that'd be
Absolutely
really
crazy.
fun.
He always brings a great anecdote with him, doesn't he? Like at Lille, he made them sleep in like an enclosed area, all the players together, like it was some sort of like camp, so to speak. Against Leeds, he sent all the players out picking up rubbish, didn't he? It's just good, colourful character to have. I want Tony Pulis back in the Premier League.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
agree with that.
Any
More
manager,
Tony.
any
dare
manager
you.
that headbutts James Beattie naked in a shower is good with me, right? So, Tony Pulis, vote in the poll above who you want. Bielsa, Graham Potter, Tony Pulis, naked headbutting players. Next question comes from Super Mariga, very Sky Sports Fantasy Football related, this chaps. Neves or Richarlison, who both had dynamite first week. So Richarlison, the highest point scorer in week 1 with 20, obviously got that brace for Everton on his debut. Neves scored that absolute peach of a free kick, got 14 points. Van Straten, who do you go for in your team? Who's going to be the most consistent over the course of 38 games?
I think Neves is going to give you points week in, week out. He's going to do more defensive work than he did in the Championship, you'd have thought, because Wolves will have less possession. And he's going to get you passing points. The thing is about Richarlison, the good thing is you could actually swap these guys in and out. I think their prices are reasonably similar, maybe in the mid 8 millions. And so I think that you could look at who Everton are playing, and if you think that it's a game that Everton are going to win, and I'd expect them to come probably 7th or 8th this season, then it might be worth bringing in Richarlison. I mean, we've been pumping him up all along, and he's a year older after a very, very good first season last year. I think that he could actually have a monster year for Everton. So, I don't know, my heart says Richarlison, but my head says maybe pick and choose on this one a little bit.
Interesting. What did your head say, Statman Dave?
I'd go with both, to be honest.
Everton bought Richarlison for 50 mil.
I thought it was a good deal because of the input that he got under Marco Silva and how good he was and how he was pretty much everything that Watford did well, he was part of it. I like how he arrives late as well. Like it reminds me a little bit of how Ronaldo arrives late from that left wing, or used to back in the old glory days of the Premier League. Arrive late, ball comes in, wins the header. He does that quite frequently. But I think the thing that you got a bit of a concern there is he did fall off the cliff when Silva went, and it kind of like broke down. And is there a question of his character with the price tag? But his first game was brilliant. I loved how he used the defender for that second goal as a bit of a shield. Simple, that side foot into the bottom corner. But like I said, I'd have both of them. I think they're both players that will do a lot. Like Richarlison, it's all about duels, like take-ons, tackles, like you're going to get points there, as well as his goals and assists. So I think that's quite a positive side to his game, but then Neves is going to control everything that Wolves do well.
Yeah, I think it was 8 goal contributions in 2,000 minutes under Silva, or around that, and then nothing in the subsequent 1,300 or so minutes. But obviously, like you said, Watford had a tumultuous second half to the season, didn't they? I don't think he contributed to a goal after December, but we like him. A lot of shots in the area. I personally would go for Richarlison over the pair, although I'm a big fan of Ruben Neves' extremely cultured play. That sort of that kind of lifted cross, a looping cross to, was it their new acquisition? Was it Jimenez at the back post?
Yeah, Jimenez.
Absolutely glorious. Who would you guys go for? Let us know in the comments below. Moving on to our final fan question. Alfred Mang has sent in an absolute humdinger, gentlemen. What striker is more valuable to their respective clubs? Question mark. Just regarding the top teams. Now, as Arsenal and Manchester United fans, you're well qualified to answer this. Starting with you, Statman Dave. Who's the first person that springs to mind? Is it Romelu Lukaku? Of course, 17 league goals. Why is it last season at Manchester United? You'd have been pretty stuffed without him and De Gea. Is he a candidate, or are you thinking elsewhere?
I think he is. I think he's a big part of Man United's attacking play, both against the top teams and the bottom teams. I think he's pretty much everything now, a complete player. And I think when you watch United without him, you lack that drive, you like that player that you can play to his feet and the ball will be retained. I think there's stuff that's been in the past that he's really improved on, and I think you can take the performances against Chelsea, Tottenham last season where he grew as a Manchester United player, grew as a Mourinho target man in a way, and I think without him in the side, United lack a bit of physicality in that central area. But the likes of Aubameyang, Lacazette, I think the really interesting one is if Morata can start scoring, he will be pivotal to how Sarri wants this Chelsea team to play. I think Sarri's obviously got the best out of someone like Dries Mertens, who is a wide player, different player. Like, that's more of Eden Hazard playing as a number 9.
Yeah.
But Gonzalo Higuain scored so many goals, a record amount of goals for Sarri. So I think if they can get him fit and get him confident and get him playing the way they want to play, he could be vitally important.
Yeah.
But I pretty much watching him at the moment, it just looks so unconfident.
But Gonzalo Higuain had that pedigree, that consistency beforehand. Obviously, those 36 goals. He went supernova in that season, didn't he, under Sarri? But I worry about Morata's mentality, Van Straan. How is it that Jorginho is taking that penalty when he's so starved of goals?
Well, it's not necessarily his fault. I mean, that's something that the manager will determine,
Jorginho
right?
scored 9 out of 10 in the last competition.
Yeah,
Yes, but
so-
come on, against
It
Huddersfield.
was a lovely penalty though.
Yeah, but I think when a new manager comes in, especially when that manager is Sarri, I'm not sure I want to go and disobey him on the pitch. Get
Cigarette in the eye.
Yeah, he's going to have you killed. But I don't know. Like I understand where you're coming from. Like Morata's last season, my feeling was Morata's XG numbers are really, really good. He's scored consistently everywhere he's gone in limited minutes. He will continue to score at a good rate. And last season was interrupted by back injuries. I feel pretty positive about the future. However, when you read what he said about his goal scoring form, it starts to become a little bit troubling, because we saw Ibrahimovic do it a couple of years ago, and he said, well, I knew I was doing the right thing. I was getting shots from the right area, and they will start going in. Harry Kane, maybe not quite as intellectual as Ibrahimovic in this regard, but just kind of said, oh well, I just do what I do and we'll see what happens. And those attitudes I think are probably better than Morata, who said, I got down, I felt like I could never score a goal, I had no confidence in my
Shades of
ability
Torres.
to beat the keeper, blah blah blah. And that is a bit of an issue. However, he's still going to get into goal scoring positions. Consistently, whoever's played centre forward for a Sarri team has got bags of goals. And Morata is also going to do other things that Giroud won't be able to. And I don't imagine Sarri will trust Tammy Abraham to do yet. He will run the channels, he'll get involved in link-up play. And all it really takes is for the ball to go in off his knee in a big match, and I think he'll be fine again. It's just
the Hernandez, the Chikorita
Yeah,
of any limb.
It wouldn't be
But
the worst thing.
This is the first time Morata is the top dog at one of his respective clubs, isn't it? At Real Madrid, he was coming on, he was chipping in with goals prolifically. That one season, I think he was the highest scoring Spaniard in La Liga one year. For Juventus, he was playing in that left-hand sided position, wasn't he? Not the main source of goals, but a goal every third game perhaps for the old lady. Now, there is that reliance on him. And do you think that, and a combination of what you've just said before in terms of overthinking his poor form, will kind of bury him to an extent?
I don't know, because he's been the starting centre forward for teams before. I mean, for Juventus, there were often games where he started as the sole centre forward in big games in the Champions League. He was actually preferred quite
Against
often
Real.
in the Champions League against Bayern Munich in particular. And has been the starting centre forward for Spain. He was in the run-up to the World Cup.
Only 5 goals in qualification, though, same as Isco. I think that was a joint top goal.
Sure, but I'd argue also that that's a stylistic thing to some extent. Like, you'd expect Hazard's goals to go up this season. So I don't know, he's perfectly capable. I don't see why doing it over the course of a season would be totally different from doing it in individual big games. And he's not entirely on his own. Giroud is going to get minutes. Tammy Abraham may well get minutes, and I think we probably expect at some point to see the kind of little man front line of maybe Willian, Pedro and Hazard. I wouldn't be surprised to see that either.
I like that. Before I move on to Harry Kane, who is my answer, did it surprise you that Sarri let Batshuayi move to Valencia?
Crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. After his form back end of the season for Dortmund, it seemed like he could be the guy, technical forward, good at putting the ball in the back of net, confident right now, that could easily just fit in. Different to Olivier Giroud, different to Tammy Abraham, who are quite similar centre forwards, in my opinion. And I think he could be perfect. And it's really weird that he's sort of pushed him aside. He's had a good relationship with Belgian players before. It just seems a bit odd that he's gone out of the way. Maybe it's a club decision over actually a Sarri decision. That's the only thing I'd throw back to you, because it seems a bit odd.
When I saw him play for Chelsea last season, he is a goal scorer. He's predatory, isn't he? He's great inside the box. He displayed that for Dortmund as well. But I suppose his link-up play was lacking a little bit, and that might have been part of Sarri's thinking, that it might not be as fluid in the front three as other players.
But he then could have thought about playing him not as a centre forward, but on that right wing role, which is not a true winger role.
The Callahan role.
Yeah, exactly. Where his job was actually an off-the-ball role. It was
to
arrive late in the box and score. You know, it's not something that's unfamiliar to Batshuayi. He had really good take on numbers when he played off the wing at Marseille. Really, really good alongside Gignac. So I think it would have been quite interesting to see him there, because his off-the-ball movement is fantastic. And when I look at that Chelsea team, I only see two, what I think of as off-the-ball players, guys who don't want it to feet, and those are Pedro and Batshuayi.
The interesting side with that is Kante. If you watch Kante in the first game of the season, whenever Pedro drops, Kante's running behind. Obviously, he grabbed the goal, didn't he?
Really
and I honestly think Kante could be a real steal in the next few weeks if he continues moving forward. Maybe not bring him in for Arsenal, but if you bring him a bit later on, could be a real asset.
I've said this on some shows of late. Like, he is a terrible finisher. However, has the mobility just to pop up anywhere. And if you watch Jorginho, even pre-season, he was just telling Kante, get up the pitch, I will find you. There's that one great clip circulated on Twitter where he puts him through. But yeah, he could chip in with a few more goals.
Do you think he's quite composed though? Like, all the goals that he's not scored many goals in the Premier League or for Chelsea, but you take the goal that he scored against United in the FA Cup, where he received the edge of the area,
awful at long
simple check, finished it, and it's kind of like he's quite instinctive in a way. When he's there, he's actually quite good, but it's getting into those areas, and I think he could be a good player to sort of bring in.
If he's getting into the zones, that's the main thing. I think.
That's the biggest thing.
Like actually, historically, Aaron Ramsey profiles as quite a bad finisher, but he consistently gets good chances in the box and therefore scores goals. You could argue the same about Raheem Sterling before last season. Had never really been a consistent finisher, and so Kante, if he's getting those chances, will eventually score more goals.
Kante is going to become more of an Alan type player. So Alan at Napoli was that progressive midfielder, wasn't he? He was further up the pitch than Jorginho.
It's exactly the same, and it's playing on the different lines. It's quite interesting. Jorginho will sit in midfield, but if they break the lines, either Barkley or Kante, you see those guys combine, and that's an opportunity there that Kante could be the guy receiving it, plays it to Barkley, and then he'll move into the penalty area.
He's actually really cheap on the fantasy games because he's not much of a goal threat. Obviously, you get bonus points for tackles, so he might be great in that regard as well. I'm going to go for Harry Kane just because I think, and it's absolutely mystified me as to why he's playing at the start of this season, given how his form tailed off very clearly due to fitness in the after the round of 16 during the World Cup. His shot numbers against Newcastle were poor. They're indicative of when he got injured after February and when he was rushed back. I think he had 2 shots, 1 on target. This is a guy who last season was averaging 5 to 6 shots a game in the Premier League when he was on song. It puzzles me as to why he's had to play at the start of the season, especially when Son is going to the Asian Games. Apparently Son has to win, otherwise his career is over. No, I think that's probably overdoing it. But Harry Kane, for me, without him, and especially as Son disappears for 6 weeks, Spurs could be in major trouble. That leaves them with Llorente and Vincent Janssen. That's an AZ Alkmaar reject, and someone who was brought in as a plan B, and that plan B never worked last season in terms of just pumping it to him in the box. But you guys, before this, are pretty confident that Dele Alli can fill in that striker role, perhaps when Harry Kane's not off full fitness.
That could be really interesting. I think we've seen Dele Alli move a bit in the back end of last season. We saw Eriksen come to number 10. Ali actually start left wing and then be the guy that's still making the runs into the penalty area, but not from a central area. So I think if Ali can be flexible like he's shown, playing on the left, playing centrally, why not as a centre forward, a player that's going to come off the line like Son does? Son's got an incredible goal scoring record. I think it's like 49 goals for Spurs.
Unbelievable.
And for a player that's like predominantly plays out wide, is quality. So he's the guy that would be the number one guy if they can sort Kane's injury problems out before he leaves. But similar, I think Dele Alli could be interesting as well. Christian Eriksen as a false 9.
That'd
Again,
be interesting.
not physical enough, but at the same time, if he's vacating that space,
certainly intelligent enough.
And
Yeah,
leads
Ali's
the press really well.
Yeah.
I agree that Ali could do it, but I actually think that the argument that Kane is the most important striker makes more sense given how thin Spurs' midfield is this season.
Yeah,
I think
that's the other
Ali's
side
going
of
to
it.
have to play midfield minutes, and that means that they don't have him to back up that position quite as much, unless Wanyama's fit, which he wasn't last season, unless you trust Sissoko, which I wouldn't, unless
Amos
Harry
has
Winks
come
is
in.
fit.
Apparently impressed
Sure.
a lot in pre-season,
Yeah,
a
well,
player that's been likened to N'Golo Kante.
Spurs fans love to hype their young players, but they've kind of got no option at the moment. I mean, if he's good or if Winks is fit, I love Harry Winks.
Winks is so good.
Then they'll be fine. But when you look around that team, you see unfit players in Wanyama and Winks. You see a good but slightly limited player in Eric Dyer, and you see a guy who's aging in Moussa Dembele, and you think,
I think that's kind of the interesting side to Arsenal. What have Lacazette and Aubameyang. United kind of have Sanchez, Rashford, Lukaku. City have got Jesus, and we haven't even spoke about them, and Aguero. They seem to be fine. I think Spurs may be the only guys that are there. Liverpool could potentially play Daniel Sturridge there, who's come back.
Solanke as well was good in limited minutes last season.
Yeah, certainly. And Naby Keita was playing on the left-hand side.
I'd love to see him through the middle as well.
4-3-3.
I'd really like to see him through the middle.
I knew he was tactically versatile, but I didn't know that that was in Klopp's mind kind of as soon as this.
So I went to watch RB Leipzig last season just because
Yeah.
they are fun. They are
Nice,
really fun
yeah,
to
why
watch.
not?
And he actually played out wide left in that game.
Brilliant.
And it was consistently him coming off and just looking for that through ball. And we kind of saw that. It was either a through ball centrally or it was a through ball to the fullback, as we spoke
And there's
about previously.
Yeah, there was a couple of times where he linked up really well with Robertson, wasn't there? Robertson was offside marginally, I think, on one pretty clear-cut opportunity. But yeah, that would be an exciting
Lovely
development. So, who do you guys think? Because we've been speaking for a long time. Let us know in the comments below. Moving on to the next section of the show. Time for match previews then, and pretty obviously Chelsea versus Arsenal, which is the 5:30 kickoff on Saturday, leads the charge. Now, week one, Chelsea obviously faring better than Arsenal, but against much inferior opposition. And I kind of feel like you're on a more even keel with Chelsea, so stand a better chance of upsetting them. Is that how you feel? Are you positive right now?
I am quite positive, but that's because I'm at least interested by what's going on at the moment. Like in the first game against City, I didn't really expect anything out of it, and I thought that we got pretty fairly beaten by a very, very good side. But I was able to see some of what Emery's doing, right?
Yes.
There was a 4-3-3 at points. He was relying on
Guendouzi.
Ramsey to lead the press, which Ramsey is quite well suited to. Guendouzi, I thought, he's obviously going to be raw. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. But I thought if he'd been playing alongside Torreira instead of Xhaka, he probably would have had a much easier day at the office. I actually quite liked it, and I thought the subs were really good when they came on. I thought Lichtsteiner looked good.
I thought Lacazette was a great introduction.
Yeah,
You
Lacazette
had a
was
really
great.
good 20-minute spell when he came on, and I was
Yeah.
surprised at how deep he dropped. He was almost kind of Firmino-esque. Did that surprise you?
No, that's how he was playing last season. He was playing very deep last season, and it's kind of how he played at Lyon, I think, to some extent as well. He's a very good link-up player. And yeah, he had that half chance, that kind of volley from the edge of the box at 1-0 down. I don't think it would have necessarily changed the result, but it would have been good to see him get off the mark. I think that I watched the Chelsea-Huddersfield game on our live stream as well, and I thought that actually, before it got away from them, Huddersfield looked pretty dangerous. They were able to get down the wide areas a lot.
There was a chance for, who's that French, the striker, the ball from the French league? Meunier at 1-0, wasn't there, at the back post when he had to score and he hit the post. And that definitely would have made things much more uncomfortable for them.
But even that, they were able to find space behind the wing-backs. I'm actually quite a big fan of David Luiz, but a 3 at the back covers for his deficiencies.
Yeah.
A 3 at the back also covers for Marcus Alonso's deficiencies. And so if they persist with this back 4 next week, then you do look at Arsenal and think, what, they do have the players to exploit this. And there were times in the first game where Arsenal's press actually worked pretty well against what is clearly the best passing team in the country and probably the best in Europe. So if they can do that against a Chelsea side that's still adapting to Sarri ball, then maybe it'll be all right. On the other hand, I never go for an away win against Chelsea. Like that's a big claim.
I think there's like two interesting sides there. One is the press of both sides. I think both teams are still developing their possession game.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be goals in this game where they're both going to get caught out. Building up from the back. Petr Cech obviously didn't have the greatest game with the ball at his feet.
Generous.
First half, he completed more passes than any other Arsenal player. That was a bit of a flag for me to be like, It's a little bit of a worry about Arsenal's possession play playing out.
Yeah.
Too many Granit
Especially with
Xhaka backwards
Socrates and
passes.
Mustafi. And I didn't think Mustafi was that bad, but
No.
Socrates looked extremely uncomfortable on
You
the
see,
ball.
I think midfield was the issue. I think that Granit Xhaka was he was almost too fancy on the ball. Whereas you wanted him to play a Steven and Nzonzi 2-yard pass to the left and be like, we're done with this.
Yeah.
He was trying to turn, get it up, or he'd play back. So that's one side. I think there's a lot of goals through the press. And the other side of that is Huddersfield against Chelsea, hitting the channels were really, really good. Like you're saying about David Luiz, when he got in behind, just offside in the first half, where it was a simple ball. They worked out of the press, they played a ball down the line into the channel, and they were in. With David Luiz and Rudiger, they switch off a lot. So you're thinking someone like Aubameyang, if Lacazette, like we're saying, makes the move to the midfield, that's going to be a big issue for them.
I much preferred that front three of Ozil, Aubameyang and Lacazette. I think you were far more threatening there.
But just Ozil, like... not to jump on his back, but Lichtsteiner starting on the right midfield. That's what I said should have been happened. Emery should have gone with that.
He had a weird game, didn't he, Ozil? Lost the ball the most times, but also regained possession the most times.
At the same time, it was consistent, let's see, that it was on the Benjamin Mendy pushing on.
Yes.
And he'd track him, but he couldn't do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, he got back a few times, but someone like Lichtsteiner in that situation, Benjamin Mendy is going to be much less, like a less threat.
Yeah, I think Riyad Mahrez had much less freedom when Lichtsteiner came on, and he was getting out to him much quicker. He was nice and physical with him. I like the way that everything he did, he wanted to do with speed, and you could tell he'd come from sort of an Allegri system, couldn't you? Every time he was getting the ball for a throw, he was like, where is everyone?
Let's go.
Question for you, has Bellerin's progress as a player halted somewhat? Because I'm not really seeing him develop in the last couple of seasons, and the fact that Mendy did have the freedom that left-hand side kind of raised a few questions for me, or am I being a little bit unfair?
I don't think Mendy did have the freedom of the left-hand side. I think that City generally did.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so if you see the game, like, what you're seeing is them swapping constantly. Mendy spent most of the game in midfield, and then if Sterling came inside, he would sprint out to the left. So the thing was, I didn't really think that it was a Bellerin against Mendy matchup. It was a Bellerin against whoever it was.
left-hand side, yeah.
And that was really difficult. Like if you go back and watch it, then you see there's this handoff that City do, and Arsenal have not worked out their handoffs internally yet. So at some point, Bellerin has to be saying to whoever the right side midfield or the right side winger is, okay, you take this guy and I'll go with this guy. Lichtsteiner was a little bit better at corralling his forward players. Bellerin wasn't quite as sure about when he was meant to go with the runner or go with the guy on the ball.
Was it Mkhitaryan down the right?
It switched. It was Mkhitaryan at the start, and I think Ozil went out
because
afterwards.
Ozil actually, for the first 20 minutes, kind of stuck to his defensive duties, whereas Mkhitaryan I thought was pretty dreadful throughout the whole game.
Really? I saw you say this in our like Football Daily group chat, and I thought Mkhitaryan...
Livid!
I thought Mkhitaryan was vastly superior to Ozil on the day. I thought
they were both awful.
I thought
5 out of 10, both of them rubbish.
I thought Ozil gave like a 1 out of 10 performance. I thought it was maybe the worst performance I've ever seen from Mesut Ozil. Whereas Mkhitaryan...
That is damning.
Whereas Mkhitaryan had a couple of good moments. I found it really hard to think of a good Ozil moment. And he passed up 2 pretty decent chances in the game.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
And I say this as like Ozil fanboy number 1.
More like high-profile incidences to kind of to criticise him regarding that touch for the Edison pass. That was very uncharacteristic of him, wasn't it? But Mkhitaryan, I at least saw Ozil trying to be positive and trying to kind of be progressive and take the game to Manchester City, whereas I thought Mkhitaryan bumbled on the ball. I thought his build-up play was really laboured. He had to have 2 or 3 touches when every other player on the pitch only had to have 1, and he was really winding me up.
That is Mkhitaryan. He's like a wind-up merchant to fans of the club, because sometimes you'll see and he'll be dominant. Like the last season against Everton,
but he's better
so
the
clean
middle,
in the final third,
bang.
and against City, he just felt like you say, it was like. There was a chance, he got the ball in the box and it was open for him to have a shot, and he just took another touch. He lost it and it went away.
I don't know if it's a
frustrating
confidence
thing.
When he sees Aubameyang, I think he's great when he peels off the left, when he's got the middle, when he's not got his back to goal, because I think that's when he requires 2 or 3 more touches. But when he's got the whole picture in front of him, that's when I think he's at his best.
Best at the last pass. If you put Mkhitaryan on the last pass where he's in space, plays the pass first time, unbelievable player. But I think it's when you give him too much time, like you're sort of saying, or back to goal. I think that's why maybe Mourinho ultimately thought, probably got to move this guy on. I
think that he's better as well as a secondary creator. Like, obviously he has been a primary creator in the past, but I think if you're relying on him to do most of your side's, chance creation, then you're in a bit more trouble.
The big United problem, I think.
Whereas I think if he's a runner for Ozil,
you've got a bit more fun.
That'll work quite well. I think that, to be honest, like, the beginnings of the press are positive. I think the defence will obviously improve, but this is day 1. And so I think that over the course of the season, Arsenal will cause problems for inferior sides.
Yeah.
Whether Chelsea are one of those inferior sides is kind of hard to say.
I felt there was lots to be positive about against Manchester
Yeah,
City.
it's just
but,
like sometimes you just get beaten by a side that's a lot better than you. But for me, as an Arsenal fan, I was like, at least I'm seeing new things. I'm not bored. I was seeing us press in a concerted manner, and I saw times where it actually worked, the press, against City, and I thought, you know what, like maybe there is a future in which Arsenal are not trash.
saying that, I do think Chelsea are going to win.
Probably. You'd have thought
It's
so.
excellent to see Mourinho play long ball against that side. People are going to lose there. But no, I'm going to go with Arsenal.
Really?
I think they'll stop Jorginho and they'll stop Chelsea, and Chelsea's high line is going to be undone by Lacazette and Aubameyang.
Interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Love that.
Let's do matches 2 and 3 pretty quickly then, because we spent quite a lot of time on that. Cardiff versus Newcastle and Leicester versus Wolves, starting with the Cardiff versus Newcastle game, which is live on Sky Sports at 12:30 p.m. on Saturday. Their opening games, obviously Cardiff lost to Bournemouth, who I also think are sort of in a 4 or 5 group team, let's say, in terms of nailed on to go down. Newcastle lost 2-1 to Spurs in a fairly unconvincing Spurs win. It hit the post, hit the bar. I think Spurs required Lloris on more than one occasion in that game. So you'd imagine Newcastle, despite being away from home, big favourites for this?
I'd say so, yeah. I think the only fun in this whole game is Kennedy.
Yeah.
I think that's the
6
only creative
dribbles.
spark, the only
6 dribbles
fun.
against Tottenham.
The rest of it, ugh. What I like as well
Or
is his work
Yedlin,
rate.
maybe Yedlin a little
He's,
bit.
I think his ACL's gone.
Oh God,
Went
is it
off with
actually an ACL?
I think he went off injured against Spurs, and it looks like a classic ACL overstretch injury.
He's one of those players who's
I
so
like- I
quick, isn't
really
he?
enjoy
He's
Yedlin.
so quick that he's privy to those injuries.
Positionally, he's just atrocious.
Yeah. But when you think that Cardiff's like chief method of creating shots is, you know, the set piece method, and they're up against Benitez, you start to worry about their prospects for this game. I mean, this it kind of has 0-0 written all over it, doesn't it? But I think Newcastle probably have just enough quality to sneak a win.
Let's go with a 4-4. Let's just get excited about
4-4.
it. Yeah, it's going to be a great game.
I can't see Cardiff. I genuinely am finding it hard to see Cardiff winning a game
Or scoring any
Will
goals.
Cardiff have a better season than Billy Davies' Derby team?
No.
Ooh,
I'm going to go no.
12 points, was it?
I think
Probably.
because
11,
the rest of the league have
13.
invested so much money and they just haven't, and
Yeah.
they were already really behind.
You got a feel for Cardiff, haven't you?
I
You've
feel
seen
sorry for
Fulham
them, yeah.
come up and spend 100
I
million.
don't care.
Seeing Wolves. No, you're right. You haven't got to feel sorry for them. And let's move on.
Yeah,
Sorry, Warnock. So, you know, match 3, Leicester versus Wolves. I actually think this will be low key. Great game.
Yeah,
Could be
definitely
a great game.
There's so many
and
ballers in this game.
Who have you got anyone from this game? You've got Pereira. I've got Ndidi, and Ndidi had me 5 points against Manchester United. That's 1 point less than Jamie Vardy, who scored. And therein is the merit of having a midfielder who wins an awful lot of balls. Bonus points, obviously, for retrievals. I actually think it's going to be quite close. I think this will be quite an open game. Puel's Leicester against Manchester United, actually, in that first half. Very impressive. And I think I saw a stat wherein they went in after the first half with around 70%
They
possession.
had more possession in the game across the time.
Outrageous.
I think it's
Yeah,
a
but
change
I mean,
in Man United, right?
Well, I guess so. Sorry, I mean, but they went a goal down early as well, and United were content to let them have the ball, right?
I think that's the game. That's the how the United. If you look at United off the ball,
pressing gameplay.
they were quite like Chelsea 2004. It looked like a 4-5-1.
Yeah.
They looked to break down the flanks. And again, if that's the plan, that's the plan. I'm cool with that. But I think Maddison's going to be exciting behind the 2 Wolves central midfielders.
Yeah.
Willy Bolly, though, is the main man, right?
6.1
He's
mil.
the guy that's in my
Bargain.
team, Willy Bolly.
And we're moving on to your team next. What a segue that is. So, lads, rough predictions for Wolves Leicester?
2-1 Leicester.
Ooh, I'm going to go 3-2.
3-3.
3-3 Leicester
You're
Wolves.
such an optimist.
4-4
I
Cardiff
just like
Newcastle.
goals, you know what I mean? I want to see as many goals as possible.
So do I, but
Positive
that's why I don't
vibes.
think we'll get them. We don't
That's,
ever have anything nice. Let's move on.
Next section, nothing nice. Time for that part of the show where me and Pato get to kick back and relax and listen to Dave explain his inexplicable choices for his fantasy team, including his ridiculously expensive back line. Completely of the opposite opinion to me, that your forward line should be fire, your back line should be cheap. You've gone t'other way round. Please explain yourself.
There's a lot of points in full-backs. I think Mendy's going to be fantastic. Robertson's going to be grabbing assists. But you mentioned you're putting your money in the front. I've got Aguero and I've got Mo Salah. I'm
Fair
sweet.
play.
decent defence.
Have you
decent
swindled this then?
So you
the
saved money
midfield.
in the midfield.
Yeah, we've been a bit budget Barry in the midfield. Guendouzi's going to be an interesting one. I think he's going to be the guy that Emery's going to be picking every week. I think he tactically looks very diverse. I think he played well, bar that mistake that let Aguero in. Had a good ball recovery.
Yeah, really grew
completing
into the game,
passes.
didn't
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of what Emery did with Nzonzi, let's say. Just kind of a good physical midfielder, keep it simple, going to get you some points, consistent points. But as well, I like the side of having someone like a Raul Jimenez in there as well, a player that you've seen in European football over the last few seasons playing like Europa League football, but always gets into good positions. At 27 now, I think he's going to start scoring goals, and obviously scored an opening day.
Late bloomer.
Yeah, a late bloomer, but he's a target man. Target men usually get around 27, 28, 29. They start scoring goals like Luca Toni back in the day. So that's another interesting side there. In terms of City players, obviously City going to start to blow teams away, I think. The interesting side though, Bernardo Silva. I think him and Pep have got a bit of a bromance going down this season. His goal against Arsenal, well taken. The classic Guardiola goal, cut back to the penalty spot, simple finish. I think he's going to be, whether he's going to be playing central midfield, right midfield, left back, right back, he'll be in the side, and that's why he's in there.
Van Strijn, are you still unsure about Bernardo Silva? There was a question mark over his head last season from your quarters. Is it still there?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really done that much to put it away. Like, I still think he's an interesting player. Like, I don't think he's a talentless player by any means, but I didn't think he was particularly good against Arsenal. It depends what role they end up seeing him play, because when they bought him, I think that everybody, just because of his name, decided he was going to be the heir to David Silva, and that might still be true, but it's not a role he's ever played previously. He's always been a winger. His entire career, he's been a dribbly winger. And if he gets to be the third man coming into the box and getting to the penalty spot, then yeah, I completely agree. And clearly that's something they've drawn up. So that would be quite exciting if you pick him in your team. You'd probably save a little bit versus some of the other top
That's
line
the big thing. It's kind of like I've got to balance my expensive attack, expensive defence with someone like a Bernardo Silva that
How
may
much
go
was he? Do you know
9.3 around.
That's not bad.
So not
actually.
bad.
It's
Good
not bad
value for a City midfielder. I kind of agree with last season. I wasn't impressed with Silva compared to his, the performances put in for Monaco. But I feel pre-season, roller games, grabbed an assist in the Community Shield, goal in the first game of the Premier League season. Yeah. I just feel like
just
it could.
24.
Yeah, I think it's time for Bernardo Silva to be the man. Could even play as a central striker if need be.
The only thing is 9.4 mil. Naby Keita's right there. That's
yeah,
all
I'm going Silva over Keita.
Wow.
Interesting. Oh, but who would you pick, Bernardo Silva or Naby Keita? Let us know in the comments just below. But that's all the time we have now, gentlemen. We're going to have to wrap this up. I've enjoyed talking to you two and your bulbous brain. Statman Dave is going to pick our prize winner on his Twitter. His handle is on screen right now. Scott Bottom, I believe you got 132 points this week. Ooh. Congratulations to you. Please get at us on Twitter and we'll buy you a shirt of your choice. We would put his team on screen now, but it's on private, the absolute schemer. Statman Dave, where should people go after this show has finished?
Straight onto YouTube, Statman Dave. Get on there, subscribe, like that goddamn video.
Pato, this is your favourite part of the show. Where should they go now?
Oh, I don't know. Stay right here. Subscribe. Like our videos. Get in the comments. See what happened at the weekend. I don't know. What went out? Hot takes? That probably happened. Was there a stat wars? I believe there was. Just watch that stuff and let us know what you think.
So sincere.
Feel like you have to.
Bye. Remember to sign up to our league if you haven't already.
Oh yeah,
Pin
do
is
that.
on screen
837
now.
6406.